The fire was out, just brick ash, a few cold bones of timber where Flame used to sit. She scraped the hearth floor with the poker like she was digging for something. Not treasure, not warmth, just something that hadn't been touched in years. The tip hit wood. She pulled it out barehanded. A small box, rough. No hinges, no lock. Just slid open like a drawer meant to stay closed. Inside, 12 spoons layered like ribs, each one older than she'd ever seen, worn down to soft edges. Names carved by hand. Tiny. Precise. She lifted the last one, smallest of the bunch. C.T.W. She didn't speak, didn't shake, just closed the box and walked straight to the kitchen. Her aunt sat peeling potatoes. Knife slow, rhythm steady. The girl set the box down on the table. Firm, the clink of wood on wood, louder than it should have been. You lied about Mama. Aunt didn't flinch, just peeled another strip. Where'd you get that box? The girl held the spoon up, pinched between two fingers like a verdict. Where do you think I got it? Aunt's eyes lifted, pale, tired. You don't touch that box. You said Mama died in the barn fire, that she left nothing behind. She didn't. Then why does this spoon have my name on it? Aunt stood, not quick, not slow, just enough to push the chair back with a groan. She walked to the sink, washed her hands like something needed rinsing besides dirt. You tell me, the girl said. Aunt dried her hands on her apron, folded the cloth over, and pressed it flat. Put it back. No, it's not yours. It has my name. Aunt's face changed, barely, but the corners of her mouth tightened like they remembered something they weren't allowed to say. Wasn't always your name. The girl blinked. You changed it. No. You gave it to me. No. Then who did? Aunt didn't answer. Just turned back to the counter, picked up a second potato, started peeling. The girl watched her hands. You carved it. No. Mama. Aunt stopped, just for a breath. I said put it back. The girl set the spoon down on the table, not in the box, just flat on the wood where her aunt could see it. Then she sat. You lied. She asked me to. The girl blinked hard. Why? She didn't want you to know. Knowing what? Aunt sat back down. Her knife slowed. She was scared. Of who? Of what she'd done. Of what we let happen. The girl stared. That spoon's older than me. Yeah. She named me after someone. No. You just said... She didn't name you after. She named you again. Silence settled. Not peaceful, just heavy. She had another daughter. No. Yes. She had you. The girl pointed at the box. 12 spoons. 12 names. Aunt stayed still. One's mine. You said Mama left nothing. So, where's the rest of her? Aunt's voice cracked. First time in years. Buried, same as the others. She died in the fire? No. Then where? Aunt looked at the window like it had something to say. Out back, under the cotton tree. Why didn't you tell me? Because you weren't supposed to ask. I found it. Aunt looked at the spoon. At the name. You were never supposed to find it. Why not? Aunt's hands shook. She left it for you. Then why bury it? She made me promise. The girl leaned forward. To forget. To protect. The girl shook her head. You didn't protect her. Aunt's voice dropped low. She was bleeding, and no one would touch her, not after what happened to the others. What others? Girls, quiet girls. That family brought 'em in. Said it was charity. Said they'd educate 'em. What family? You know. The girl's voice cracked. No, I don't. The one with the white fences and no children. The one with the school no one talked about. The girl's chest tightened. Why was my name on the spoon? Aunt stared at her like she wasn't ready to answer. She said if she didn't come back, you'd grow up like a clean page. No memory, no mark. She was wrong. Maybe. But she was scared. The girl slid the spoon back into her hand. I turned it over. Rough edges. Lettering too small for pride. Too careful for accidents. You carved it. Aunt nodded. Finally, she made me. Said I'd know when you were ready. When you found it on your own. She knew I would. She hoped you wouldn't. The girl opened the box again. All 12 spoons gleamed like the past never left. Who are the others? Aunt swallowed hard. That's not mine to say. Then I'll find them. Aunt stood again. No anger now. just grief. Girl, you ain't ready. I found the box. Aunt reached for it. The girl pulled it back. You take it, Aunt said, but you better be ready to eat with it. I already did. Aunt blinked. What? The girl walked to the sink, held up the dirty bowl. One spoon is missing. I ate breakfast with her name. Aunt's voice dropped to a whisper. Then it's begun. The girl nodded. You gonna stop me? No? Aunt stepped back. Quiet, small. You're her daughter, all right? No. The girl picked up the box. I'm all 12. The table was set before the food was. She laid the spoons first, one by one, beside each empty plate. Their handles caught the lamplight, dull from years of handling. Some edges chipped like teeth worn down. She didn't polish them. She wanted her aunt to see every scratch, every carved letter. Her aunt came in carrying a pot. She stopped short when she saw the spoons lined up like witnesses. What's this? The girl didn't look up. She adjusted the smallest spoon, the one with her initials, so it pointed straight at her aunt's chair. You know what it is. Her aunt set the pot down hard. The stew sloshed against the lid. Take them back to the hearth. No, they don't belong here. They do now. Her aunt pulled out her chair but didn't sit. She stared at the spoons like they might start speaking on their own. Who carved it? The girl asked. Put it back. I asked you a question. I gave you an answer. The girl slid the spoon with her name closer to her. She held it up. The initials were clear in the light. CTW, shallow but sharp. It's mine. Her aunt shook her head. That name's buried. Not anymore. Her aunt pressed her palms flat against the table. The wood groaned under the weight. She didn't look at the food, didn't reach for a plate. The girl took the pot and filled her own bowl. Steam curled up into her face. She picked up the spoon with her name and dug in. Her aunt flinched. You don't eat with that. Why not? It ain't meant for your mouth. The girl chewed slowly, loud enough to make sure the sound filled the room. You lied about Mama, she said. You lied about me. Her aunt sat finally, but her hands stayed folded in her lap. She wouldn't reach for her plate. She wouldn't touch her fork. The girl kept eating, spoon to bowl to mouth. Her aunt's plate sat empty. You're making a mistake, her aunt whispered. Number, I'm making you tell the truth. Her aunt's jaw clenched. What's the truth? It tells me why my name was carved before I was born. The silence stretched until the stew cooled. Flies buzzed at the window. The girl's spoon clicked against the bowl, steady as a clock. Her aunt finally spoke. She told me to hide it. Who? You know who. Mama. Her aunt nodded. Why? She said no one should carry it. Then why give it to me? She thought she could end it with you. The girl leaned forward. End what? Her aunt looked away. You're not ready. The girl slammed the spoon against her bowl. The sound cracked through the kitchen. Don't tell me what I'm ready for. Her aunt's hands twitched in her lap. You keep eating with that spoon. You'll carry every name carved before yours. Then I'll carry them. Her aunt looked at her with something between pity and fear. You don't even know what it means. Then tell me. The older woman's lips trembled, but no words came. The girl kept eating, bite after bite, until her bowl was clean. She licked the spoon once, slowly, and set it back on the table. Her aunt didn't touch her plate. You're acting like she's still here, the girl said. She is. The girl froze. What? Her aunt's eyes watered, but she blinked. Them dry. She's in every mark, every letter. Every handle is carved down to nothing. The girl's stomach tightened. So you all knew. Her aunt said nothing. You all kept her alive in pieces and buried the rest. Still silent. The girl pushed her chair back. The legs screeched across the floor. She picked up the spoon with her name. You can sit there and starve. I'll find the truth myself. Her aunt finally reached for her, but not fast enough. Girl. The girl pulled free. Don't call me that. What should I call you? The girl gripped the spoon tighter. Call me by the name you buried. Her aunt's face went white. CTW. The girl nodded once. Say it again. CTW. Say it like it matters. Her aunt's voice broke. CTW. The girl slipped the spoon into her pocket. She left the table set, the plates empty, the food untouched. Her aunt stayed behind, staring at her own bowl like it might fill with answers if she waited long enough. The girl stepped out onto the porch. The night pressed heavy. The spoon weighed more than it should in her pocket. Behind her, the house stayed dark. No clatter of dishes, no sound of eating. Just silence, thick and final, like a meal no one had the courage to touch. The road into town was dust and silence. She walked with the wooden spoon in her pocket, the handle pressing against her leg like it had weight no one else could carry. The houses stood still, doors half open, curtains shifting but never wide enough to show faces. By the time she reached the square, the sound of men talking low cut off sharp. 4 old men sat outside the store, their rocking chairs lined up like a jury. When they saw her, the chairs stopped moving. Their eyes dropped to the ground, to their boots, anywhere but her face. She kept walking. Her steps were loud on the boards. At the well, a woman bent to draw water. She saw the girl, saw what she carried in her hand, and the rope slipped from her grip. The bucket crashed down the shaft with a hollow echo. The woman's basket tipped, apples rolling into the dirt. She pressed both hands to her mouth and wept without sound. The girl didn't stop. She went straight down the middle of town, every window watching without opening. She pulled the spoon out, held it high enough for anyone to see. "Who carved it?" she said. No one answered. The pastor's wife stepped out from the church porch. She held her shawl tight, eyes wide. "You shouldn't have brought it here," she said. The girl's voice was steady. "I just want to know who carved it." The woman shook her head. "You should put it back." "Why?" "Because that name doesn't belong in the open." The girl's grip tightened. "It's mine." Before the woman could answer, boots hit wood behind her. The sheriff stepped off his porch, hand brushing the star pinned to his chest. His face was pale, his mouth set hard. "She already answered," he said. The girl turned toward him. "No," she said. "She didn't say why it was my name before I was born." The sheriff froze mid-step. The air shifted. Even the trees outside town went still, like the wind had dropped dead. The girl stared at him. "You know." His jaw moved, but no words came out. "You buried her," she said. He shook his head, slow. "Not me." "Then who?" "Doesn't matter now." "It matters to me." The pastor's wife reached for the girl's arm. "Child, you don't understand." The girl pulled away. "I'm not a child." "You are to them," the woman said, glancing at the old men on the porch. "And they'll never let you be anything else." The girl stepped closer to the sheriff. "Tell me who carved it." His hand dropped from his star. He looked down at the dust, then up at her again. "You were never supposed to see it," he said. "But I did." He exhaled hard, like he'd carried something heavy for too long. "Your mama wanted it buried with the rest." "Then why didn't you?" "Because she begged me not to burn it." The girl's voice sharpened. "So you hid it instead." He nodded once. The pastor's wife started to cry. The sound carried through the square, thin and breaking. The girl raised the spoon again, the initials glinting in the light. "This was carved before I was born. How could that be?" The sheriff looked at the letters like they burned. "Because you weren't the first," he said. The square went silent again. The words hung in the air like ash. The girl's throat tightened. "What do you mean?" The sheriff didn't move, didn't breathe. "You weren't the first CTW." Her hand shook, but she held the spoon steady. "Then where's the other?" No one answered. She turned on the old men at the store. "You all know, don't you?" They stared at the boards. Not one looked up. She shouted now. "Say it. Where is she?" No sound, no answer. Just rocking chairs, creaking, though none of the men moved. The girl's eyes burned. "You're the family that didn't speak. That's how you kept it quiet." The sheriff stepped closer, his voice low. "Stop this before it swallows you." The girl didn't back down. "It already has." The pastor's wife clutched her shawl tighter. "Please," she begged. "Don't make him say it. Not here." The girl's chest heaved. "I'm not leaving without the truth." The sheriff's shoulders sagged. His voice dropped to a whisper. "She's under the cotton tree." The girl blinked hard. "Mama." He shook his head. "Then who?" He couldn't answer. His lips moved, but no sound came. The girl's grip tightened on the spoon until her fingers hurt. "You'll show me," she said. The sheriff looked away. "Not today." "Then when?" "Soon enough." The girl shoved the spoon back into her pocket. The initials pressed against her skin like fire. She turned from him and walked through the square. Every eye followed, but no voice rose. Not one man spoke. Not one woman dared. Behind her, the pastor's wife sank to her knees. The sheriff stood still as a stone. The old men rocked in silence, their chairs creaking like the only sound the town was willing to make. The girl kept walking, each step sharper than the last. The family hadn't spoken, but she would. The sewing chest sat in the corner of her aunt's room, covered by a quilt no one touched anymore. Dust had turned it gray, but she knew the hinges still worked. She had seen her aunt go there once, late at night, slipping something inside. Now she lifted the quilt and opened the lid. Beneath the spools and thimbles was a false bottom. Thin wood fitted loose. She pried it up with her fingernail. Inside lay a stack of letters tied with twine. The paper yellowed, edges curled. The first letter bore no name on the front, just a shaky hand scrawled across the page. For the next her. Her chest tightened. The date was older than she was, older even than the night the barn burned. She sat on the floor, spread the letters out, and read one by one. The handwriting was her mother's. She'll come looking for us. Don't let them tell her nothing. She'll find the spoons. One will belong to her. Don't lie when she asks. Promise me. Her hands trembled. She kept reading. Another page showed a rough drawing. 12 spoons laid out in a line. Each one is carved with initials. At the end, an empty space. A spoon is missing. A spoon buried. The note beside it read, "They said 12 make the circle. They said the last must carry all the rest. If she finds the missing one, it means they failed. It means she's still breathing." The girl pressed her palm against the paper as if heat might still linger there. She turned to the next sheet. Words written darker, quicker. If she finds it, do not lie to her. If she asks, do not turn her away, or she'll put them back in order. Her breath caught. She read it again. Put them back in order. She looked at the box of spoons on the bed. 11 left in the line, 1 in her pocket, all carved by hand, each with a name that didn't belong to her, but still bound to her. She read the next letter. I hear them at night, counting. Always 12. Her name is always last. I thought if I gave her mine, they would stop. But the counting never ends. They say it's not about living. They say it's about the ones who wouldn't speak. You'll understand when you see the tree. Her mouth went dry. The cotton tree. The one the sheriff had named. She flipped to the last letter. The ink bled, smudged by water or tears. If she reads this, it means I'm gone. It means you couldn't keep the fire from spreading. Tell her I tried. Tell her I loved her. Tell her the name is not a curse. It is a key. But don't lie. Don't you dare lie. Her fingers shook. The letters slipped onto the floor. She gathered them again, stuffed them back inside the sewing chest, but she couldn't force the lid closed. Her breath was too heavy. Her aunt's footsteps creaked on the stairs. The girl froze. The door opened. Her aunt stared at the letters in her hands, her face draining white. You weren't meant to open that, her aunt said. The girl rose, clutching the first page. Then why hide it here? It wasn't for you. It says for the next her. Who else was it for? Her aunt stepped into the room, slow, like crossing a line she never wanted to cross. Those words weren't meant for your eyes. They were meant for me. Mama wrote them. Her aunt's jaw tightened. She drew the spoons. The girl said, 12. 1 missing. 1 buried. She knew I'd find them. She hoped you wouldn't. The girl held up the page. She told you not to lie, but you did anyway. Her aunt's eyes flicked to the box on the bed. You don't understand what those are. Then tell me. Her aunt shook her head. You're not ready. Stop saying that. The girl shoved the paper against her chest. She said if I found it, I'd put them back in order. What does that mean? Her aunt swallowed hard. It means you'll bring them home. Who? Her aunt's voice cracked. All the girls they took. The girl's knees weakened. She gripped the edge of the chest to keep standing. They're gone, she whispered. Her aunt's eyes watered. Not gone enough. The girl slid the letter into her pocket beside the spoon, 2 weights pressing the same spot. You should have told me, she said. Her aunt's voice dropped to a whisper. I was trying to keep you from becoming her. The girl stared back, her voice steady now. I already am. The church smelled of old wood and dust, the kind that clung to every hymn sung too many times. The congregation sat stiff, heads bowed as the pastor read scripture in the same measured voice he'd used for decades. No tremor, no pause, no hint of doubt. The girl pushed open the door. The hinges groaned. Every head lifted. She walked straight down the aisle. the box of spoons under her arm, one clutched tight in her fist. The pastor faltered mid-verse, his eyes fixed on the spoon like he'd seen a ghost rise in daylight. She stopped at the altar right in front of him. She held the spoon out. "Hold it." The church went quiet enough to hear breath catch. He hesitated, then reached with slow fingers. The spoon dropped into his hand. His face drained. His grip slipped. The spoon clattered on the pulpit. For the first time in 30 years, his voice cracked. "You kept it," he whispered. The girl's eyes burned. "You kept her." "I didn't keep anyone," he said, shaking his head. "Just what was left." From the back pew, his wife rose. Her scream tore through the silence. "Don't make him say it again." The girl turned. "Say what exactly?" The pastor's wife clutched the back of the bench, her knuckles white. Her voice broke like it was dragging glass up her throat. "He swore he'd never speak it again." The girl's voice sharpened. "Then let him break his vow." The pastor trembled, his hands gripping the pulpit. The congregation stared, wide-eyed, frozen in their seats. He finally spoke. "Your mama asked me to keep the circle closed." The girl shook her head. "Number she asked you not to lie." His face twisted. "You think that's the same thing?" "It is when the truth's buried with her." He bent, picked up the spoon from the floor, stared at the letters carved in the handle. "CTW," he said, barely above a whisper. The girl's chest tightened. "Why my name? Why before I was born?" He closed his eyes. "Because she wasn't the first." The church gasped as one. The sound rippled through the pews. The girl stepped closer, her voice steady. "Then who was?" The pastor's wife screamed again. "Stop it. Stop it now." The pastor shook his head. "We don't say their names." "Then I will," the girl said. He opened his eyes, wet and broken. "You don't know what you're asking." "Yes, I do." His wife stumbled forward, her face twisted with rage and fear. "You'll tear this town apart." The girl stared at her down. "Maybe it deserves to be." The pastor gripped the pulpit so hard it groaned. She wasn't supposed to carry it. "Then why carve it?" His shoulders sagged. "Because the others never made it past the tree." The girl froze. "What tree?" "The cotton tree," he whispered. "Always the cotton tree." The congregation murmured, shifting uneasily, as if the words had stirred something they'd all buried. The girl slammed her hand on the pulpit. "You knew. You all knew." The pastor's voice cracked again. "We thought it would stop with her. We thought the fire ended it. But it didn't." He shook his head, shame dragging every word down. "It never does." The girl held the spoon up for everyone to see. "These were names. These were lives. You called it a circle. I call it murder." The pastor's wife lunged forward, grabbing the spoon, but the girl pulled it back. "Don't touch me." "You don't understand," the woman cried. "I understand enough," the girl snapped. "She left me this so I'd finish what you were too scared to." The pastor's lips trembled. "You'll bring them back. That's the plan. You don't know what it will cost." She glared at him. "It already cost her. It already cost me." The congregation stirred, whispers rising. Fear rippled like wind through wheat. The pastor lowered his head. His voice came out broken. "God forgive us. We carved their names so they wouldn't be forgotten. We thought that was mercy." The girl's throat tightened. "Mercy? You buried children under a tree." Tears streaked the pastor's face. "I buried prayers, not children." "No," she said. "You buried the truth." His wife sank to her knees, rocking. "Don't make him say it again. Don't let him." The girl stepped back, her voice steady, sharp. "I'll make him say all of it." She tucked the spoon back into the box, slammed it shut, and turned. The congregation parted without a word. Not one hand reached for her. Not one voice called her back. As she pushed open the doors, the pastor's voice cracked one last time. "CTW," he whispered. "God help her." The girl didn't look back. She gripped the box tighter and stepped into the daylight. The town's silence followed her, heavy as the circle that was never closed. The old nurse lived at the edge of town in a house that smelled of liniment and dust. The girl had been told once never to visit her. They said she was too old, too sick, too far gone. But when she knocked, the door opened before she could call out. The nurse's eyes were cloudy but sharp beneath the film. She looked at the girl like she'd been waiting. "You brought it," the nurse said. The girl held out the spoon with her name carved on the handle. The nurse nodded once, then shuffled inside without another word. The girl followed into a room lined with shelves and jars, bandages folded in neat piles, bottles with faded labels, and on the table, a second wooden box, bigger than hers, heavier. The nurse pulled back the lid. Inside lay braids of hair, clipped clean at the roots, each one tied with string. The color varied, blonde, black, red, brown, but each was stiff, brittle with age. The smell of ash clung to them. The girl's stomach turned. "What is this?" The nurse's voice was flat. "Evidence." She lifted one braid. The string around it had a small lid of wood burned with initials. "Labeled," the nurse said. The girl leaned closer. She saw it clearly now. Names burned into wood, one for each braid. Her chest went tight. "How many?" The nurse set the braid back in the box. Her hands shook. 12. The girl's breath caught. 12 spoons. 12 braids. The nurse nodded. The girl's voice cracked. "Mine would have been last." The nurse didn't answer. She didn't have to. The girl slammed her spoon down on the table beside the box. The sound echoed through the small house. "Then someone changed the pattern," she said. The nurse looked at her, slow, long. Finally, she nodded. "Or someone survived it." The girl's throat burned. "Which was it?" The nurse lowered herself into a chair. Her bones creaked. "I was told it was for science." The girl's voice rose. "Science?" The nurse nodded again, weakly. "That's what they said. A study of inheritance, of weakness. They called it preservation." The girl's hands curled into fists. "You helped them." "I cut the braids," the nurse whispered. "They said it would ease them before the fire. That hair doesn't burn the same way flesh does. That something could be kept." The girl's breath came hard. "And you believed that?" The nurse's eyes watered. "I believed in my orders. I believed in my duty." "Your duty was to them," the girl said, voice low. "Not to the girls." The nurse closed her eyes. "I still see them." The girl's stomach nodded. "Who?" "The 12, the nurse said. "All but one?" The girl pressed her palm against the spoon. "Me." The nurse's chin dipped. "You." The girl stared at the braids, each one tied neat, contained, muted. They looked like trophies lined up in silence. She whispered, "Why me?" The nurse shook her head. "I don't know. I only know the fire came before your turn." Her chest heaved. "So I was spared by accident." The nurse didn't answer. The girl pressed harder, or by someone's hand. The nurse's gaze drifted to the window. "Maybe both." The girl shoved the spoon closer to the box of hair. "Then tell me who changed it." The nurse's lips trembled. "Ask the sheriff. Ask the pastor. They chose who was taken." The girl's heart pounded. "And you clipped the rest." Tears rolled down the nurse's face. "I told myself it was kindness, but it was only silence." The girl shoved the box hard enough to rattle the braids. "You buried them in wood. You thought that would make it clean." The nurse shook her head. "I thought it would make it memorable." The girl's breath shook. "It didn't." The nurse's voice dropped. "Then make it." The girl's fists shook as she pulled the spoon back into her hand. She stared at the carved letters. "You should have said no." The nurse nodded. "I should have." The girl's voice turned sharp. "You should have burned this box." The nurse's eyes lifted, glassy and wet. "If I had, you wouldn't know their names." The girl froze. The nurse's voice was almost gone now. "Take them. Say them. Put them back in order. That's the only way to break the circle." The girl glanced at the braids again. Each one bound, each one labeled. She whispered, "They'll hate me for it." "They already do," the nurse said. The girl pressed her spoon against the lid, right beside the burned names. "Then I'll carry them anyway." The nurse leaned back, her chest heaving shallow. "Then you'll be the first to do what none of us could." The girl lifted the box. It was heavier than it looked. She tucked her spoon into her pocket, then stared one last time at the nurse. "You should have stopped them." The nurse's eyes closed. "I know." The girl stepped outside into the dusk, the wooden box, clutched to her chest. Behind her, the nurse's voice trailed out, weak, broken. "Or someone survived it," she whispered again. The girl walked on, the box of hair pressing against her like proof, like weight, like fire waiting to spread. The gates weren't locked, just tall, quiet, iron twisted into shapes that mimicked trees. The girl pushed them open and stepped onto a path that didn't look like it had been walked in years. Ivy swallowed the bricks. The wind moved without sound. The estate rose at the end, pale stone, long windows, too many rooms for one family. She clutched the box of hair tight under her arm, her spoon still warm in her pocket. She'd been told this was where the pattern began. The oldest names, the highest decisions. She knocked once. No answer. She knocked again, louder. The door creaked open. The governor's daughter stood there in a soft blue dress, long braid falling over one shoulder, dark, full, untouched. "I knew you'd come," she said. The girl said nothing. "You brought the box," the daughter added. "Where do I put it?" The daughter stepped aside. Where it started. Inside, the house smelled of dried flowers and paper. A fire burned low in the library, untouched tea cooling on a tray. The girl followed her down a narrow hall, past rooms locked with keys still in the doors. "You're not like the others," the girl said. The daughter didn't turn. "I'm not supposed to be." "Why?" "Because I wasn't chosen." "Then why are you still here?" The daughter paused at a wooden door and opened it. Inside, shelves lined with identical record books. She pulled one free, handed it to the girl. They called it a humble arrangement. The girl opened the book. Neat rows of names, dates, measurements, initials she recognized from the spoons. At the bottom of the last page, CTW, pending. The girl's voice cracked. "You were supposed to finish it." The daughter nodded. "Your braid was the 12th. The girl's fingers curled around the edge of the page. "Then tell me what this was for." The daughter's voice was flat. Submission. Control. The governor didn't like questions. He liked obedience. The hair was proof. Of what? That you belonged to the pattern. That you were small enough to be clipped, marked, and stored. The girl slammed the book shut. "And what was my mother?" "A deviation," the daughter said. "A risk." The girl glared. She survived. The daughter sat on the edge of a chair. "Barely. They burned the barn because she spoke your name too loud." The girl took the box of braids and set it beside the fire. "My name wasn't hers first." "No," the daughter said. "It belonged to the first girl that tried to run." The girl's chest ached. "They gave her name to me to see if it'd behave better the second time." The girl stared at the braid on the daughter's shoulder. "Why keep yours?" The daughter reached for it slowly. "He said I'd need it, to carry the memory, to close the circle." "You were the last?" "I was the one left standing." The girl looked around the room, polished, clean, silent. "Where are they now?" The daughter didn't answer. "Where's your father?" "Buried without his name." The girl pulled the spoon from her pocket and held it up. "I'm not the end," she said. The daughter stood, crossed to her, and placed a hand over the carved letters. "You're the echo." The girl nodded once. "Then I'll say it louder." The daughter moved to the fire. "Do you want to see where it happened?" The girl's jaw clenched. "No." "Why not?" "Because I already know. It happened everywhere they said to be quiet." The daughter looked at the box of hair. "What will you do with it?" The girl didn't hesitate. "Carry it until every name is said out loud." The daughter nodded. "Then it won't end with you." "It's not supposed to." The fire popped. The room didn't blink. The daughter stepped aside. "Take what you need, but leave the book." The girl stared at it. "Why?" "Because someday someone else will come. She'll need proof too." The girl didn't argue. She left the book on the desk. As she turned to go, the daughter called after her. "You think saying their names is enough?" The girl paused at the door. "No," she said, but silence didn't save them either. Then she walked back out into the cold, the box of names pressed tight to her chest, the echo of the 12th girl heavy in her steps. She didn't go to the station. She didn't knock on his door. She walked straight to the cemetery, past the crooked fence, through brittle grass, until she found the stone with his mother's name, faded, sunk, half swallowed by the earth. The sheriff was already there, kneeling with his hat in his hands. She stopped behind him, her box of spoons bumped against her leg with every step. He didn't turn. "I didn't carve it," he said. She didn't speak. "I didn't carve your name into that spoon." She stared at the back of his neck. "You guarded it." He nodded once. "I buried it." She stepped closer. Her shadow crossed his back. "Not deep enough." She dropped the box beside the grave. The wood thudded hard against the ground. The lid cracked open. The spoons inside shifted with a sound like bones trying to speak. He winced. "I did what I was told," he said. "No," she said. "You did what was easiest." His hands clenched. "I was young. You were strong. I didn't know what they planned. You knew enough to hide it." He turned finally. His eyes were red. "I thought the fire ended it." She opened the box and pulled out her spoon, the one that matched the name her mother, whispered in the dark. "Then why guard the ashes?" He stood slowly, brushing dirt from his knees. "I wasn't the one who started it." "But you let it live." He looked at the spoon, then at the box. "I thought if no one found them, no one would follow." She shoved the spoon into his chest. "And if someone did," he didn't take it, "they'd have to finish it." Her voice hardened. "That's what I'm doing." His jaw worked. "You think naming them fixes it?" "No," she said. "But silence didn't save them." He looked at the grave. "My mother was the first to whisper your name. She knew what they did. She didn't speak until she was dying." The girl stepped forward. "What did she say?" "That the last would carry the circle. That if CTW ever returned, the town would be forced to remember. Then you knew I was coming." "I hoped you wouldn't." The girl held up the spoon. "You knew this was mine before I was born." He nodded. "Why?" "Because it was carved the day after the first girl disappeared." The words struck hard. He looked away. "Your name wasn't a name. It was a place in the pattern." Her voice was nice. "A placeholder. A warning." She knelt by the box, pulled out 3 more spoons. "Read them." He hesitated. "Read them." He looked down. SLPMJHRES. She dropped a braid beside each one. "These are their hair, their silence, their weight." He staggered back. "You kept them?" "I carry them." He stared at the braids, the wood, the initials that didn't feel like names anymore. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Say your part." "I didn't carve it." "But you buried it." He nodded. "You knew who carved it?" "Yes." She stepped closer. "Then say their name." He flinched. "It won't change anything. It will be for me." He looked at her, then at the grave, then down at the spoons again. "The pastor," he said. "He carved the first 6. The rest were ordered." "By who?" "The governor's house. The daughter was spared." "I know. They needed one more. They chose me." "No," he whispered. "Your mother did." The girl froze. "She begged to stop the circle," he said, "offered her own child instead of another stranger's." Her knees buckled. "She thought giving you the name would end it." "She was wrong," he nodded. "But she tried." The girl looked down at her spoon. "Then I'll finish it." He knelt beside her. "What do you want me to do?" She handed him the last spoon, uncarved, blank. "Bury this," she said. "Not in secret, not in shame. Do it where they can see." He took it in both hands. "And what will you do?" he asked. She stood. "Speak loud enough they can't forget again." He looked up. "Even if it breaks." "Everything." She stared back. It already did. She turned and walked away. Behind her, the sheriff stayed kneeling, the blank spoon in the dirt, the names rattling in their box like thunder waiting its turn. The church doors opened wide before she touched them. Sunlight spilled in behind her, sharp and loud, as if even light wanted a place in what came next. She walked down the center aisle alone, her boots echoing harder than they should have. In her arms, the box. In her pocket, the last spoon. The pews filled slowly, faces she'd seen all her life. Faces that had smiled quietly, nodded politely, closed shutters without questions. Now they watched her. Not one spoke. She reached the altar and set the box on the floor. The wooden lid creaked as she opened it. She knelt, not to pray, to arrange. One by one she pulled the spoons out. CTW first, then SLP, then MJH, each one lined in front of her, handles pointing out. Their carvings showed age, not just from time, from use, from silence. She placed them like names on headstones. By the time she stood, every pew was full. The sheriff near the back, the nurse beside the door, eyes down. The pastor behind the pulpit, hands trembling. The governor's daughter stood by the latch and turned it slowly. Locked. The girl didn't speak yet. She walked the aisle again, spoon in hand, stopping in front of each person whose initials matched a spoon. She said nothing, just held the spoon out until their eyes met it, then moved on. Some sobbed, others turned their heads. Not one denied it. 12 spoons, 11 matches. At the 12th, she stood before her aunt, the only one left untouched. She held the final spoon, blank. The one never carved, the one meant for the end. Her aunt's hands gripped the pew. You don't know what this will do. The girl's voice didn't shake. This ain't justice. A man in the second row scoffed. Then what is it? She looked at him. Remembering. The pastor dropped his gaze. Tears spilled onto his collar. I begged them to stop, he whispered. I did. The girl turned to him. You blessed them while they did it. He broke them, covered his face, sat hard. The nurse reached for the side of the pew to steady herself. I didn't carve, I only clipped. And they burned better because of you, the girl said. Gasps stirred. Whispers started. The sheriff didn't speak. The governor's daughter stepped forward, quiet but sure. They won't admit it, not all of them, but they know. The girl stared at the spoons. Tell me, she said, loud now. What were they for? No one answered. She stepped behind the altar and faced the crowd. Were they a test? Nothing. Were they warnings? The pastor moaned like something inside cracked. Or were they trophies? Still silent. The girl raised her mother's spoon. You carved names before they could speak. You took their voices before they knew what they meant. She set it down again, straight, unmoving. Today we speak for them. The sheriff stood slowly. I can say mine, he said. CDR. He stepped forward, picked up the spoon with his initials, held it like it weighed more than any badge he'd ever worn. I knew, he said. Every time someone went missing, I knew where to look. He set the spoon back down, sat without a word. Others followed. The baker. I drove one of them to the estate. Said it was a scholarship. The midwife. I never asked where the mothers went after the birth. The teacher. I sent 3 girls for special lessons. I thought I was doing the right thing. Each one took their spoon, spoke. I returned it until only 1 spoon remained, blank, waiting. The girl walked it to her aunt. Yours doesn't have letters, she said. Her aunt didn't lift her eyes. But you earned it anyway. The room held its breath. Her aunt spoke softly. I raised you. You lied to me. I fed you. You watched them burn her. Her aunt's voice cracked. I saved what I could. You saved the lie. I didn't choose your name, but you let them give it. The girl slid the blank spoon onto the pew between them. I don't need you to confess. Her aunt whispered. Then why give it to me? The girl stood tall. Because when they ask what broke the pattern, I want them to see your face too. The girl turned back to the altar. The spoons lay in a straight line. All 12. No papers, no signatures, no judgment. Only wood, only silence, breaking apart at last. This is the trial, she said. No one walks free, no one burns, but everyone sees. The governor's daughter unlocked the door. 1 click, nothing else. The church didn't empty fast. No one rushed to leave. Some stayed seated. Some wept. A few knelt. The girl didn't watch them go. She stayed by the spoons, watching them reflect the fading light from the stained glass. 1 for each girl, 1 for herself, 1 for the story no one could bury anymore. The girl set the record book on the table without saying a word. Her hands were black streaked from ash. The braids rested on top, wrapped in cloth, like something still breathing. Her aunt stood by the sink, shelling peas like nothing had changed. The sun angled through the window, soft and gold, too gentle for what filled the room. You still think I'm the villain, her aunt said, not looking. The girl didn't answer. You dragged names through the street. You put spoons at people's feet like curses. The girl opened the stove door. It creaked like a warning. A warm draft pushed into the kitchen. Her aunt turned. You're not doing this. The girl lit the match. 1, then another, then 3, held together in her palm until the flame touched her wrist. You're not doing this in my house. Her aunt snapped, voice sharp. The girl didn't speak. She dropped the match into the firebox and watched the wood catch. A slow, hungry crawl. Her aunt laughed once, bitter. You think this makes you brave. The girl picked up the first thing, the letter, the one her mother wrote for her next. She held it like a goodbye. Then she fed it to the flame. The edges curled. Ink disappeared in seconds. You're burning your own blood, her aunt said. No, the girl whispered. I'm burning what tried to own it. The braids came next. She unwrapped the cloth slowly, like a shroud. 12 in total, 12 voices that never got to finish their sentences. Her aunt stepped forward. "You leave them out of this." They were never out of it. She placed the first braid into the fire. It smoked quickly, sang sweet, then turned black. The second followed, then the third. Her aunt moved fast, tried to grab her wrist. The girl pulled back hard. "You want to stop it," she said, sharp. "You stop me now." Her aunt froze. The fourth braid hissed in the flames. The fifth shriveled to nothing. The smoke filled the room with the smell of old innocence turned bitter. "You think this ends anything?" her aunt hissed. "No," the girl said, voice soft, "but it won't happen again." The sixth. The seventh. She didn't pause. She didn't flinch. The record book waited on the table, the same one the governor's daughter had let her read. Rows of names, measurements, pending. She picked it up last. Her aunt whispered, "That's history. That's permission. You'll lose everything." I had nothing to begin with. She tossed the book into the fire. The pages resisted at first, thick with ink and intent, but the heat took it anyway. The spine curled, the cover blackened, the pages lifted like wings, then vanished. Smoke coiled around the ceiling, the window blurred. The girl wiped her face with her sleeve. Her aunt leaned on the counter, eyes wide, mouth tight. "You're just a child." "Then you should have protected me," the girl said. The flames snapped. The last braid curled like a question with no answer. The girl turned from the stove. The spoon lay on the table. Heron C.T. Dow, the only thing she didn't touch. Her aunt glanced at it. "You gonna burn that too?" "No." "Why not?" "Because it's not yours to lose." She slid the spoon back into her pocket. The warmth of it calmed her. Smoke clung to her hair, her skin, her breath. Her aunt stepped closer. "You'll regret this." The girl looked her dead in the eye. "You already do enough regretting for both of us." They stared at each other through the smoke. Two women bound by one lie stretched across decades. Then the girl walked to the door. She didn't rush. She didn't look back. She opened it slowly, stepped into the fading light. Behind her, the kitchen burned quiet, not with chaos, but with a decision. The spoon stayed. Everything else, letter, braid, record, memory, burned. Not to erase, to mark the line, to say, no further. She left before sunrise. No note, no glance toward the house, just the wooden box in her arms, its weight shifting with every step. The grass held dew like breath still clinging to the land. She walked until the ground softened beneath her boots, until she heard the creek murmur low through the brush. It wasn't wide, it didn't roar, but it moved. And that was enough. She knelt by the edge and opened the box. The hinges groaned once. Inside, 11 spoons. No braids now, no papers, no book, just wood and silence. She took the first spoon between her fingers, the initials, SLP. She spoke the name in full. "I release you." She pressed it into the mud near the bank. The water barely stirred. The next, MJH, I remember you. She buried it beside the first, pressing it deep until the initials vanished under the wet dark. Third, RES, I am not yours. She sank it without trembling. She didn't rush. Each spoon, one by one, lifted like a promise, and with each she said something real. You were not silent. You were not weak. You were not forgotten. The fourth, the fifth. Her voice stayed low, not out of fear, but reverence. These weren't confessions. They were corrections. When she reached the seventh, her hand paused. The initials burned faint, worn thinner than the rest. It took effort to read. She whispered anyway. You existed. Into the mud it went. The eighth came easier. I carry no blame, but I carry you. Then the ninth, the 10th. She had nothing rehearsed, only what came. You were loved. You were more than what they feared. Then the 11th. This one she held longer. The initials were her aunt's. She almost said nothing, but silence had already taken too much. I see you now. She pressed the spoon into the earth. And then there was one left. Heron C.T.W. She didn't touch it at first, just stared. The creek gurgled against the rocks, indifferent, endless. This spoon hadn't harmed anyone, but it had named her before she had a voice. She pulled it from the box. The handle was smooth now, familiar, worn from her own grip. She didn't bury it. She walked out onto a flat stone near the center of the creek, set the spoon down, and stepped back. The water moved around it, didn't carry it away. Just let it sit. She whispered, I am not the end. She looked once over her shoulder, just once, to the place where the bank met brush, where the spoons had disappeared. Then she turned and walked. Not fast, not slow. She didn't take the box. She left it empty, open, like a grave that had done its work. The creek flowed on. The spoons slept. The names settled deeper into the soil, and the girl who carried them no longer did. The old courthouse hadn't been opened in years. Ivy crawled up its bricks, slow and choking. One shutter hung crooked. The lock on the front door was rusted, but it still held until she kicked it once hard. It cracked. Inside, dust hung in the air like breath that never left. The floor groaned beneath her boots. The courtroom was empty. No benches, no judge's chair. Just silence layered thick on every wall. She didn't go inside. She stopped at the threshold, pulled the pocket knife from her jacket, and opened it with a snap. The blade caught the morning light. She ran her thumb over it once just to feel something alive. Then she pressed it to the door. Not above, not below. Dead center. The first stroke was slow. It caught on the grain. The wood resisted like it had been waiting to be marked. She carved one letter, then another. Behind her, the sheriff approached. His hat in one hand, nothing in the other. He didn't say a word. He watched as she scraped her blade through the wood. Steady now, no hesitation. When she paused, he stepped forward, pulled something from his coat pocket. His badge. He looked at it one last time, then leaned down and placed it on the courthouse steps. He said quietly, I won't be needing this. She didn't reply. She carved on. A few minutes later, the governor's daughter arrived, clean, composed. In her hand, a single brass key. She walked past the sheriff, past the broken door, stopped beside the girl. Is this where you want it? She asked. The girl nodded. The daughter placed the key beneath the carving, tucking it into a crack in the stone where it would never fall. Then she stepped back and joined the sheriff on the steps. Neither spoke. The girl didn't stop. She carved one name, not her own. The first name on the first spoon. The one who never made it to a fire. The one who tried to run. SLP. Then the second. MJH. The blade dulled, but she kept going. She carved until her knuckles bled, until the wood splintered around the names like the grain itself wanted to speak. People gathered, slowly, one by one. Some stood far off, pretending not to look. Others stepped closer. Mothers, daughters, old men who once sat in judgment now sat on the edge of the courthouse steps, quiet. She carved the 10th name, then the 11th. By the time she reached her own, the sky had shifted. Evening light cast shadows across the dirt. No one had moved. She pressed the blade deeper than before. CTW. Then beneath it, she scratched one final phrase. She remembered. The crowd breathed like one thing. She stepped back, blade shaking in her hand. Her fingers were raw, blood mixed with dust. The sheriff took off his coat, wrapped it around her shoulders. Didn't speak. The governor's daughter looked at the door, then at the girl. Will you leave it here? She asked. The girl shook her head. It's not mine to keep. But it was. Your name. The girl looked at the carving. No, she said. It was theirs. I just carried it loud enough for someone to hear. The sheriff looked down at his badge, still lying on the step. Won't be any more circles, he said. The girl nodded. Not if they're watching. She turned to the crowd. Eyes met hers. No one looked away. She said clearly, now you all know. No one clapped, no one cheered, but not one person left. They stayed. To look, to read, to see. Later someone would paint a frame around the carving to keep it from fading. Someone else would place a lantern beneath it. But she didn't stay to watch that happen. She walked away with empty hands. No box, no braids, no name left to carry. Only the story is carved into wood, so no one could say they didn't see, so no one could pretend silence had ever been enough.